All right, let's get back down on it. I tried to do this video for the last 2 days, and for whatever reason, my internet kept doing the Humpty Dumpty, meaning that the internet kept dropping. But nevertheless, we're going to do this video and we're going to briefly discuss uh, the new indictment that has come to Mr. Trump and his 18 co-conspirators. And what we want to know is, how do you feel about this? Do you think that this is the way to go when it comes down to what's going on with Mr. Trump? Or do you feel that this is, or do you feel that this is something that could have been avoided? Now, former President Trump was newly indicted in Georgia on 13 counts. Not only was he newly indicted in Georgia, but what you got to understand is this accounts to 91 total counts. 91 total counts. That is a lot of counts. So let's briefly discuss what's going on with President Trump, and let's talk about some of his co-conspirators. Can't even get the word out. I'm so excited. Um, let's talk about his co-conspirators. He got 18 co-conspirators. 18. And that's a lot of people when you're thinking about it. 13 counts here in Georgia, 91 total counts. This constitutes a total of 700 over 700 years if he's charged on each count. What makes this different than some of the other counts is the mere fact that the governor, because this is a state RICO, Governor Kemp couldn't even pardon Trump in this situation. Governor Kemp, or I think he's term limited anyways here in Georgia, he can only it could be 5 years before he is actually could be pardoned in the state of Georgia. Now, former President Donald Trump and 18 others were charged Monday in the sweeping racketeering indictment. So we're going to talk about a lot of these counts. Donald Trump, 1 count of violation of the Georgia RICO Act, 3 counts of solicitation of violation of oath by public officer, 2 counts of conspiracy to commit forgery in the first degree, 2 counts of conspiracy to commit false statements and writings, 2 counts of false statements and writings, 1 count of conspiracy to commit filing false documents, 1 count of filing false documents and conspiracy to commit impersonating a public officer. So let's break down what they're saying. Among the charges, the indictment states that Trump falsely declared victory in the 2020 presidential election during the nationally televised speech on November 4th, 2020, and that the speech was an overt act in the furtherance of the conspiracy. The indictment also cites the phone call Trump made to Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger on January 2nd, 2021, stating that Trump is charged with unlawfully soliciting Raffensperger to engage in conduct constituting the felony offense of his oath as a public officer by unlawfully influencing the results of the 2020 election in Georgia. Now, Rudy Giuliani, one of the biggest cheerleaders for former President Donald Trump, is also count with 13 counts. And what people don't know is Rudy Giuliani made a career for himself and he moved up. He recently got disbarred, so he's no longer a lawyer. But at the same time, he prided himself on going after people like, I believe he went after John Gotti, among others, in RICO acts. So he is one of the authors to some of the RICOs that he is now charged with. He's charged with 1 count of violation of the Georgia RICO Act. 3 counts of solicitation, a violation of oath by public officer. 3 counts of false statements in writing. 2 counts of conspiracy to commit false statements and writings. 2 counts of conspiracy to commit forgery in the first degree. 1 count of conspiracy to commit impersonating a public officer. 1 count of conspiracy to commit filing false documents. So if you pay attention, Rudy Giuliani was charged with the same thing that the former president was charged with. Now, these are not no Rudy Poo people. These are some big dogs that they are going after, meaning these are lawyers that's being charged with RICOs. A lot of these people were in the government or lawyers, and they're being charged, right? 1 count, a violation of the Georgia RICO Act. 2 counts of conspiracy to commit forgery in the first degree. 2 counts of conspiracy to commit false statements and writings. 1 count of solicitation, a violation of the oath by public officer. 1 count of conspiracy to commit filing false documents. 1 count of conspiracy to commit impersonating a public officer. 1 count of filing false documents. So they are really laying it on thick. Let's keep going because we got a lot to go. We're going to talk about all 19. Remember, it's former President Trump and then it's 18 co-conspirators. Now, Mark Meadows is charged with 2 counts. And what he's trying to do is, because he said he was a federal employee at the time, he's trying to take his violations out of Georgia, and he's trying to take his violations to the federal government. He think he has a better chance. It's a chance that he's able to do it as well. All right, he's counting 1 count of violation of the Georgia RICO Act, 1 count of solicitation of violation of oath by public officer. Now I want to read some of what Mark did, right? Mark Meadows did. Among the actions attributed to Trump's former chief of staff, on December 22nd, 2020, Mark Meadows traveled to Cobb County Center and attempted to observe the signature match audit being performed by law enforcement officers and officials from the Georgia Secretary of State, despite the fact that the process was not open to the public. The indictment stated the officials prevented Meadows from entering the space where the audit was being conducted, according to the indictment. A day later, Trump placed a call to the office of the Georgia Secretary of State Chief Investigator Francis Watson that had been arranged by Meadows, during which Trump falsely stated he had won the 2020 election. So you see some of the things what Mark Meadows did and the reasons why he's brought up on these charges. All right, we got more to go. Now we got Kenneth Cheesebro. I hope Chesbro. Hopefully I said his name right. 7 counts. 1 count of violation of the Georgia RICO Act. 2 counts of conspiracy to commit forgery in the first degree. 2 counts of conspiracy to commit false statements and writings. 1 count of conspiracy to commit filing false documents. 1 count of conspiracy to commit impersonating a public officer. Now let's briefly talk about what Mr. Chesbro, hopefully I'm saying his name right. The indictment describes how several of the co-defendants, including attorney, he's an attorney. Like I said before, a lot of these are attorneys. Kenneth Chesbro allegedly worked together from December 11, 2020 through December 25th, 2020 in several states, including Georgia and Arizona, to commit acts in furtherance of conspiracy. So you already know he was trying to work behind the scenes, assisting Giuliani in this act. Now you have another lawyer, Jeffrey Clark. He's charged with 1 count of violation of the Georgia RICO Act, 1 count of criminal attempt to commit false statements and writings. Now, the indictment alleges that Jeffrey Clark, a U.S. Justice Department official, This is a big dog. This is not no Rudy Poo. This is a big dog, like Dusty Rose used to say. In the Trump administration, made false statements to senior DOJ officials, urging the officials to let him convey the false information to Georgia state officials. Clark wanted to be able to say that the Department of Justice identified significant concerns that may have impacted the outcome of the election in multiple states, including the state of Georgia. All right, so let's talk about Jenna Ellis. She's charged with 2 counts. This is the first lady that's brought up on RICO in this case. She's charged with 1 count of violation of the Georgia RICO Act and 1 count of solicitation of violation of the oath by public officer. Now, Jenna Ellis, who was a legal advisor, this is another lawyer. These are lawyers that's being charged. These are not regular people. Not to say lawyers are not regular, but these are people that knew the law. Jenna was a legal advisor to Trump and his 2020 re-election campaign and was cited in the indictment for making false statements concerning fraud regarding the election in Georgia on November 3rd, 2020. The indictment also names her among the allegedly involved in the scheme to solicit public officers to unlawfully appoint Georgia presidential electors. Let's talk about Ray Smith III. 12 counts. 1 count of violation of the the RICO Act. 3 counts of solicitation of violation of oath by public officer. 2 counts of false statements and writings. 2 counts of conspiracy to commit forgery in the first degree. 2 counts of conspiracy to commit false statements and writings. 1 count of conspiracy to commit impersonate the public officer, and 1 count of conspiracy to commit the filing false documents. Now, what Mr. Ray Smith III did, he's named amongst allegedly involved in the scheme to solicit public officers to unlawfully appoint Georgia presidential electors. It also alleges that Smith made the false statements to state senators regarding voter fraud. Now, let's talk about Robert Chili. Robert Chili, he's charged with 10 counts. 1 count of violation of Georgia RICO Act, 2 counts of conspiracy to commit forgery in the first degree, 2 counts of conspiracy to commit false statements and writings, 1 count of conspiracy to commit impersonating a public officer, 1 count of conspiracy to commit filing false documents, 1 count of solicitation of violation of the oath by public officer, 1 count of false statements and writings, 1 count of perjury. Now, Georgia lawyer, Chili is a Georgia lawyer. These are not Rudy Poos. These are lawyers. Robert Chili allegedly made false statements to members of the Georgia Senate regarding voter fraud at the State Farm Arena in Atlanta, according to the indictment. Chili is also alleged to have been part of an extensive pressure campaign allegedly targeting the then Speaker of the House, Georgia House of Representatives, David Ralston. All right, so let's look briefly at some of the pictures here. We're going to keep going with the other co-conspirators, but I'm just doing this for picture base. We haven't talked about Sidney Powell. Everybody else in picture form, we have spoken about. We spoke about John Eastman, Rudy Giuliani, Kenneth Chesbro. Hopefully I said his name right. We're going to keep going because there's some more people on the list that we got to keep talking about. Let's talk about Michael Roman. 1 count of violation of Georgia RICO Act, 2 counts of conspiracy to commit forgery in the first degree, 2 counts of conspiracy to commit false statements and writings, 1 count of conspiracy to commit impersonating a public officer, 1 count of conspiracy to commit filing false documents. So let's talk about what Mr. Roman did. Trump staff member Michael Roman is named among several of the co-defendants who allegedly worked together from December 11th to 2020 through December 25th, 2020, in several states, including Georgia and Arizona, to commit acts in furtherance of conspiracy. All right. Let's talk about David Schaefer. All right, 8 counts. 1 count of violation of the Georgia RICO Act. 3 counts of false statements and write-ins. 2 counts of forgery in the first degree. 1 count of impersonating a public officer. 1 count of criminal attempt to commit false documents. Now, Mr. Schaefer was a former state senator and former Georgia GOP chair David Schaefer was one of the alleged Georgia fake electors. Now, here we go. This is one of the fake electors right here. All right, listen. Tell me, go straight to the room 2016 to avoid drawing attention to what we are doing. He allegedly wrote in the text regarding the meeting, according to the indictment. All right, let's go. Let's talk about Sean Steele, 7 counts. We're not going to keep reading off everybody counts. Let's talk about what he allegedly did. According to the indictment, Sean Steele, a businessman who in January became a state senator in Georgia, was one of 16 Georgia Republicans who signed a certificate falsely stating that Trump won the state and declared themselves the state's duly elected and qualified electors. The evidence at trial will show that Senator Steele is innocent as the day is long, his attorney said in a statement. All right, we're going to see. We're going to see. All right. Stephen Lee, charged with 5 counts. Stephen Lee is a pastor from Illinois, traveled to the home of Freeman, the Fulton County election worker, on December 14, 2020, with the intent to influence his testimony regarding events at State Farm Arena. Now, what's so interesting about this, that these people were got doggone bold. They were bold. They really tried to steal an election in broad daylight. Even Kemp said that Biden won fair and square, and you know he's not an ally of Kemp. I mean, he's not an ally of Biden. All right, let's talk about Trivian Kuti. She's count with 3 counts. 1 count of violation of RICO Act, conspiracy to commit solicitation of false statements or writings, and influencing witnesses. Let's talk about what she did. The indictment alleges that Ms. Kuti, a former publicist for rappers R. Kelly and Kanye West, and a longtime friend of Trump, traveled from Chicago to Atlanta on January 4th, 2021, and attempted to contact Freeman in order to convince her to report election fraud claims and testimony. According to the indictment, Kuti went to Freeman's house but wasn't able to speak to her. She then spoke to Freeman's neighbor, identifying herself as a crisis manager, attempted to help Freeman. Then placed a phone call to Freeman, telling her that she was in danger and that she could help her, according to the indictment. She then spoke to Freeman for about 1 hour at a Cobb County police precinct, during which she's told Freeman that she needed protection and purported, to offer her help. Boy, you gotta be a whole bag of crazy right there. Harrison Floyd. Harrison Floyd is charged with 3 counts. Harrison Floyd, who is associated with the organization Black Voices for Trump, is accused in the indictment of recruiting Kuti to talk to Freeman. According to the indictment, Floyd also joined Kuti's meeting with Freeman by phone and perpetrated to offer Freeman help. Boy, this is all type of crazy right here, right? All kind of crazy right here. Sidney Powell, they put her at the bottom, charged with 7 counts. 7 counts. That's what Sidney Powell is charged with. And y'all already know old Sidney. She charged with 7 counts. Now let's see what Sidney did. And we already know what she did. Her and Giuliani went on that campaign trail. Former Trump attorney Sidney Powell is accused of conspiring with other co-defendants to commit election fraud by allegedly encouraging and helping people tamper with ballot markers and machines inside an election office in Coffee County. The same group is charged with conspiracy to commit computer theft by allegedly trying to get onto a computer and take information that was the property of Dominion Voting Systems Corporation. These people really tried to steal an election. People, y'all gonna sit around and think these people try to steal it. They try to steal it. All right, we're almost done though. Kathleen Latham, 11 counts. All right. She's the former Coffee County GOP chair. Kathleen Latham is among those like Powell accused of conspiring to commit election fraud in Coffee County. She also among the 16 Republicans who signed a certificate falsely stating that Trump won the state and declared themselves the state's duly elected and qualified electors according to the indictment. All right, let's talk about Scott Hall. Now, Scott Hall is actually a bail bondsman. So Scott Hall, charged with 7 counts as a Georgia bail bondsman, is among those accused of conspiring to commit election fraud in Coffee County. Attorney information for Hall wasn't immediately available. All right, let's talk about Misty Hampton. 7 counts. Misty Hampton was the elections director in Coffee County at the time, is among those accusing to conspiring to commit election fraud in Coffee County. Jonathan Miller, an attorney for Hampton, told CBS News in a statement that Hampton will be found innocent. This is a nationally concerted effort to intimidate and silence government whistleblowers and clerks when they react to witnessing election fraud, law violations, and or vulnerabilities with the election system, and the contravenes the big lie narrative adopted by mainstream media, Miller said in a statement. Now that we done talked about some of this information, how do you feel about how this election is going? How was it handled? Because at the end of the day, we clearly see that this election could have been stolen from the American people with the efforts contorted behind the scenes. Just not a good look, people. So this is Antonio with Team Tiggio. Please like, comment, subscribe. Please share this video. We're going to stay on top of this. We're going to stay on top of getting great content out there. And once again, we will see you in the next video. What happened? Wait. Don't do that. Don't do that, baby. Whoa.